I don't know why so-called experts in the marriage counseling and marriage therapy, couples counseling arena are teaching this as if it's law, if it's the rule to save your marriage. And it isn't. It is so wrong. It is so wrong. So I'm coming on to share why it's wrong, and I'm going to tell you why it's still being taught. Because if it's so wrong, why is it still being taught? Why is everybody sharing this as if it's the gospel? Well, it isn't the gospel. It's the anti-gospel. What I'm talking about is when things go wrong in your marriage, when things get to the point where you're considering divorce, when things get to the point where you actually leave the home, because you blew up in an argument and you're driving around and you need to calm down a bit. And in that moment that you're riled up and trying to calm down, or your thoughts in your head are everywhere because you're upset, your emotions are all over the place. You're either super angry, and then it makes you super sad, and it's just that roller coaster of trying to manage all those thoughts and all those feelings. So in that moment is when you make mistakes. In that moment is when you can make your biggest mistakes, and you'll say, well, shut the door, and you don't want to return, right? So what happens? You call somebody, right? If it's the wrong person and you're calling a family member, they're going to give you advice based on their experience or based on this is what you need to do. And it's not always right. It's most often not right. Let's just say the divorce rate is still climbing because of the proliferation of all the bad advice out there. And this is one of them. And it's being taught by the so-called experts. And that's why I want to share with you. You know, it's one thing to listen to your friends or listen to your mom, and you can blow things off because you can kind of hopefully make sense of, you know, where they're coming from, and you can say, well, you know, that's because of what he went through. That's because of what she experienced, and that's why she said that to me. But when it comes from someone who's supposed to be trusted as an expert, and they share this advice with you, and you act on that because you trust what they're telling you, that's when you can get in trouble. And I'm sorry, but there's so many old thinkers out there, so many antiquated psychological theories and schools of thought, and this is just one of the many things that is still being taught. Okay, I'm gonna tell you. No more suspense. We're talking about trial separations. Trial separation, right? Let's separate and we'll see how things go. And just before I get into that, trial separation happens, it's for married couples, right? You can't have a trial separation if you're not legally married. So we're talking about marriage, right? But there's also a similar school of thought, and it's for couples who aren't married. So you have a boyfriend, a long-term relationship, boyfriend-girlfriend, long-term relationship, and instead of calling it a trial separation, because that can only happen if you're married, right? It's called basically a no contact rule, right? So you're distancing yourself from your significant other, hopefully still significant other. You're distancing yourself for an extended period of time, usually 30 to 60 days and so on. The recommendation is, the idea behind it rather, is that when you separate from someone, whether it's a long-term relationship or you're married, when you distance yourself from your still hopefully significant other, what that does, the idea behind it is that it helps to prevent premature divorce filings. You know, instead of in the height of emotions, and you say, I'm out, and then you leave and you make a rash decision based on your escalated emotions after an argument or something happened, and then you're like, that's it, I'm done, I'm out, and then you file for divorce, right? So this supposed trial separation is to prevent those premature filings. But what is supposed to happen during that child separation, right? Why does it prevent premature filings? Because the idea behind it is that while you are distanced from your significant other, from your spouse, husband, wife, while you are distanced for an extended period of time, you're supposed to start missing them, right? You can't miss somebody if you're still in their face. If they're still in your face, you can't miss them. But here's why that thinking is wrong. If you're not enjoying a happy relationship, a happy marriage, don't you already miss them? Don't you already miss what you had when you first got married? What compelled you to say, I do, those many years ago? All those feelings that made you want to, climb the highest mountains, and like your heart was skipping all the beats, right? Don't you already miss that? So what the frick is a trial separation supposed to do? Make that feeling, that emptiness, even more intense? So then what happens? What's the result of that? What's the result of that? All you think about is the good times instead of in their face arguing? Okay, so you think of just the good times and you start missing those good times, right? Okay. For how long? 30 days? 60 days? 90 days? 6 months? How long are you supposed to miss those good days before you actually start creating new ones? Before you get to create those new ones, right? So do you hear what I'm saying about this trial separation and why it's not a good idea, right? You want to prevent the premature divorce filing, but it doesn't prevent the eventual divorce filing, because if you're just missing them, you're missing their presence, you're missing the smell, you're missing the sound of them in the bathroom in the morning, you're missing the door, at the end of the work day and them coming in and out, and you just feel alone. If that's what you're missing, 30 days apart, 60 days apart is not going to change that. It's not going to make it better. Better put. It's not going to make it better. All you're going to do is just have that emptiness, right? Just have that emptiness, right? So just think about this. It just have the emptiness, but it never fixes anything. It never helps the situation. It's like if you're addicted, right? You have an addiction to alcohol or drugs, right? The absence of it makes you want it more, but then once you have it, does that fix the situation? Does that repair or make things better? Does that rid yourself of the addiction, right? The absence of it is not the cure. A trial separation, the absence of your spouse is not the cure for healing a broken marriage, just like the absence of alcohol or the absence of drugs or the absence of your favorite nighttime snack is not going to cure your addiction to that food, your addiction to that drug, that quick fix that you so desire in the moment. That's not the cure, right? Being apart is not the cure. Being separated from it is not the cure. Now, before I go into what you can do instead and what will heal that, I want to share with you, well, if that's not the cure, if that doesn't fix things and it only helps to prevent premature divorce filings, why is that advice still so rampantly given? Why are couples counselors and therapists still giving the advice to give yourself a trial separation, to have a no contact rule for any extended amount of time, 30, 60, 90 or more days? Why do they still do that? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. And this is so sad. And it's so bad. And it's so weak by the person giving you that advice. It is so weak by the so-called professional, the expert who gives you that advice. When you separate, right, before I tell you why they still do it, when you separate, right, the idea again is to prevent the premature filing, divorce filing. But when you separate, not only do you miss that person, but you start getting, and this is good, by the way, but it's what you should be doing anyway. But the separation gives you more time to think, right? Without the confrontation and the argument, right? When you distance yourself from somebody, obviously you can't have an argument with someone who's not there, right? So what happens is, in that time that you would have been using just crying or being upset and angry and fighting and tippy-toeing in eggshells all around each other all the time, the distance allows you to, if you're advised properly, to take some time to invest in yourself, right? Start cleaning up your act and getting your shit together, right? Start working out regularly. Find something that you want, that you like. Get yourself together. A hobby. Start eating right, learning new recipes, going to new places, enjoying new activities, just feeling good about yourself. Something that maybe you've lost sight of, in the past, up until the point where you actually distance yourself from your spouse, right? So, I mean, that's always a great thing, to get yourself together. And while you're getting yourself together, you feel good and you start feeling better, and then you start getting over that whole crying thing and the upset and the arguing, right? Because now you start forgetting about the arguments and you really start thinking just about the good times, because the arguing is not there. And if you get, an occasional text, even though you have the no contact, right? You're supposed to not contact each other for a certain amount of time. You may get an occasional text or something, say I miss you, or so you're getting these little reminders of how things were. So those reminders, those nice, sweet reminders of how things were, in addition to what you're doing for yourself, right? 1 + 1 = 2. And you start feeling better, and then you start thinking, wow, the 30 days, 60 days did us some good. Let's get back together, right? So what happens? You start arguing again. Whether it's 60 days after, 6 months after, or 1 year after, those problems are going to come back. Why? Because they were never hashed out. They were never understood. They were never processed. They were never talked about, right? So forgive and forget, that's not what happens. That's not what happens, because you haven't really forgiven somebody. You've only allowed yourself to not feel the pain so that you could enjoy things better, right? So you're not really digging deep to take that out. You're just burning it down. Eventually it's going to resurface. Eventually it will come back to haunt you. So this is why it's still given as this advice, and why it's just like everyone gives that advice, all the professionals out there. It's because they want you to enjoy those feelings, and the 1 + 1 = 2 feelings. Does that make sense? Right? Is this making sense? All right, that's why they give you that advice, because it's much easier. I said it's weak. I said it's a weak move. It's weak because it's so much easier for the professional to give you that advice, where you can come back and after 30 days and say, oh, thank you. It's been 30 days of no contact. It's been 30 days of a trial separation. And now we're back together and we're kissing again and enjoying life. And the doctor's like, I told you that no contact thing worked. I told you that trial separation thing worked. The divorce attorney is not happy because he didn't get to handle a divorce case, but he knows. And so does the doctor, the therapist. They know that you'll be back. They know that you'll be back. They know that the divorce rate is still climbing. They know that it's easy for them to tell you what you want to hear. Oh, just separate for 30 days, miss each other, and you'll see he'll come crawling back to you, and you'll see she'll start acting differently, right? It's so much easier for someone to tell you that than it is for them to help you understand what it is exactly that you're going through, so that you can nip it in the bud, so that you can actually get closer to each other in a deeply profound and passionate way that actually creates something entirely new for you and your spouse. That takes work. That takes work. It takes work from you as a client. It takes work from the professional, from the therapist, from the couples counselor, from the legal field, your attorney, to actually advise you and exactly how the process is. Because in the process, which I said is hard, it would be hard if they actually did it, right? This is what I do with my clients. That's why we see freaking results. It would be hard for them to have you come in regularly and sit down and talk about these things. And I'm not talking about going in the past, because that's what the therapist would do, right? And understand this. Please understand this. I'm not bashing therapy. Therapy serves its purpose. It serves a great purpose, right? Mental health is a serious issue. What I'm talking about is being future focused, right? We're not talking about resurfacing the things in your past, and childhood trauma and the things that you've had to, you sadly experienced, because of the circumstances in your life in your past. We're not talking about that. We're talking about saving your marriage. We're talking about doing what it takes to save your marriage. We're talking about what do you want in your future? What do you want to enjoy, experience, have, do? Who do you want to become so that you have that wonderful life with the person you chose to say I do to years ago, right? The focus is future based. That takes work, right? If you want to get in shape, not just lose 5 pounds, if you want to get in top shape, ultimate fitness, right? The optimal for you, that takes work. That takes work. If you want to build a business from scratch, that takes work. If you want to grow a business from scratch, that takes work. You cannot expect that saving your marriage, and by the way, saving your marriage, let me just throw this out there. Saving your marriage doesn't always mean saving it from divorce. It doesn't always mean that you're on the brink of disaster, right? That we have to save you, pull him out of the river, CPR or else kaputski. No. Saving your marriage means if you're not on the same page, if your life right now with your spouse seems to be heading in different directions, maybe it's something that just gradually happens, right? Which it is something that gradually happens. Or maybe it's something that you suddenly notice, like out of the blue, she started acting differently, right? Saving your marriage is always rooted in one little misstep, one misunderstanding, one, he turned the page faster than you did and now he's one step ahead and his ambitions and his goals and you feel you were left behind. Whatever that is, that's what saving your marriage is, because we're not waiting for the brink of divorce. We're doing something about it now, right? He said something, he felt disrespected and now he doesn't want to talk to you, or you feel that why did he say that, or why did he act this way, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm just gonna blow it off, I'm just gonna do my thing today or this week, or I'm just gonna hang out with whoever, and I'm just gonna do whatever it is and just not be in his presence for the next week or the next day, or I'm gonna sleep on the couch, or he's gonna go here or whatever. And then the next day you don't even talk about it and you're just like la la la, like nothing happened, and let's go to the park, let's go out to dinner. You need to save that marriage, right? It doesn't mean you already went and filed for divorce. It doesn't mean you already had a moment where you were alone in the closet crying all night while he was watching movies or whatever the case. And I don't want to put stereotypes, because let me tell you, the reason I work with both men and women is because men and women experience the same things. They're just, some are free, feel more free to say and share than others, right? But the things are the same, the feelings are the same. The emotions, the reactions, the things that you desire, they're the same, because men and women are the same. There are no two women who are alike, exactly, and there are not two men who are exactly alike. They could have a woman and a man who have the same exact characteristics, but they're two different genders completely, and you're like, well, I only work with women, or I only work with men. No, I work with both of you, because human behavior is freaking human behavior, and there are patterns that I notice that it cannot be attributed to any one gender. So that said, I just shared with you what it is that is being shared as great advice, and people are like, yeah, after 30 days we got back together, but they're not going to go back online or announce or tell them. They probably won't even see the same therapist because it didn't work. Right? You hear what I'm saying? After 30 days they got back together, things are all hunky-dory and la la la, and then the problems start again. Do you think they're going to see the same therapist if they see a therapist? Or do you think then they're gonna think, these couples are gonna be on the thinking where they say, you know what, I already tried a therapist, I'm not doing this anymore. The next step is either gonna be going to the divorce attorney. Remember I said, it may prevent a premature divorce filing, but it won't prevent the eventual divorce filing, right? Or, right, they'll go for the divorce, or they'll see another therapist who'll then advise them the same thing, but in a different way. Maybe they'll ask, what did the previous therapist suggest? Well, we did a 30-day separation. Try a 60-day. All right, try a 60-day. You see another therapist, try a 90-day. The 30 and the 60 didn't work, try a 90-day. Get a separate apartment, pay separate. Don't, weak. That is weak. That is weak of the therapist to suggest, because they know it takes hard work. They know you're gonna have to be in their office like 24/7 to really dig into what it takes to, listen, I'm gonna share this with you because I want you to understand. Marriage is a beautiful thing. Marriage is sacred, right? Marriage should not be something that's messy. I hear this all the time when I see it, I read it. When you see couples post and like, oh, we've been together, happy anniversary, 20 years, 25 years. Things aren't always great, but we've made it through and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thank you that I'm like, no, you don't say that. Things haven't always been great, but we're together now and I thank God for you. Like, that's speaking out of both sides of your mouth. Imagine it's your child's birthday, 18th birthday, and you put a post and say, my son just turned 18. He's such a wonderful man. He's not always so smart and we don't always blah, 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 but thank God for, no, you don't say that, right? There's unconditional love and unconditional lenses, if you will. And we're not talking about being blinded, but we're talking about the way you see your relationship with this person. Your spouse is to be, right? And I say this, and my husband wooed me when he said this to me, when he first said this to me, is that God made Eve from Adam, from his rib, from his side, to be by his side, not from his head. Didn't make him from his feet where she can be stepped on. Right? God made Eve from Adam's rib where she can stand by his side. So your relationship with your spouse is the most special and the most significant relationship. And when I say marriage, right, because that's also legally binding, right? Your spouse dies, you get everything, whatever's there, right? That's legal, right? Nobody else gets entitled to anything you have when you die other than your spouse. Joint bank accounts. These are things that you do with your spouse. You don't get a joint bank account with your best friend. You don't get a joint bank account with your mom or your dad. You get a joint bank account with your spouse, and you should have that relationship with your spouse that you are one. You are one, not blindly one, not foolishly one, but when I talk about saving your marriage, when I talk about creating something new and exciting together that you may not have had or gotten to experience, right? This is a learning. We're not born from the womb knowing how to have this fantastic relationship. You need to learn. You need to be open to learning. All right? This makes sense, right? Drop a comment if this makes sense, if anything is ringing loudly in your ears right now and just getting a little insight on some of what I'm saying. I can just drift a little bit because there's so much to this and there's so many different nuances. But the thing here is that when it comes to creating a really unbreakable bond with your spouse, you really have to build that. You have to really create it. You have to want something that's beyond what you want for yourself, right? When you give birth to a child, or when you have a child, all of a sudden the world is a different place, because now you want to protect that child from everything that you've seen, all the bad that's out there, and you only want to feed him with the good stuff, right? And organic baby food and all these things, and then the outside world comes in, and then you drop them off at a babysitter, and then the babysitter fed him something that you didn't want, and you're like, no, right? Well, that's what your marriage should be. It's something that you protect, that you build to create something that's so impenetrable that it can't be penetrated. That makes sense, right? Right? So that's what I want you to do. That's what I want for you. Doesn't matter where your relationship is right now, whether you feel like it's on the brink of breakup, whether you feel like it just can be better, whether you feel like you're on different paths right now. Focus on just one thing, because I told you I want you to do this instead, right? So if I'm not supposed to do a trial separation, what am I supposed to do instead? This is what you do. You focus on you, right? You don't focus on, I want this, or 30 days apart, and how come she's not contacting me, and I wonder what he's doing right now. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're he's supposedly at his mom's house, and not. No. You stay together because you got married. You stay together because you were married, right? Now let's work on it. Let's work on it. We don't work on it by ignoring each other. We don't work on it by playing stupid mind games about, is he gonna call? Or what does it mean that he texted me this? Or all those things that are such childish games that all come into play when you're doing a trial separation. We don't want any of that, because you know what? You're not a freaking kid. You're an adult. This is not your little high school boyfriend thing that you've experienced, all these little giddy things that happen when you're a kid, when you're a teenager. You are an adult having an adult relationship, one that you married into. Work on that relationship, work on that marriage. Focus on, how do you do that? That's such a big thing. Work on it. What does that mean? Focus on yourself. Stop worrying about your spouse. Focus on yourself. Stop worrying about your spouse. One more time. Say it with me. Focus on yourself. Stop worrying about your spouse. Right? Stop being up their butt. Stop texting every 5 seconds, if that's what you're doing. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, because every relationship is different. There are different things causing causing static in your relationship. And obviously I'm not speaking to you one-on-one, so I don't know exactly what's going on in your marriage, because every single marriage is different, but the patterns are the same. The patterns are the same. When you stop caring about yourself, I care about myself, Mimi. What do you mean I don't care about myself? When you stop doing the things that make you feel good, right? Self-care, bubble bath, hot shower, massage, getting your nails done, meditating, eating right, exercising regularly, going out for a walk by yourself. Things that you do for you. Those things that you do for you, they make you feel good. They make you feel good, right? They make you feel good. And when you feel good, you start acting differently. You start acting differently. And you do this day in and day out, because it's part of your life. Things inevitably change. The saving of your marriage becomes inevitable because you start changing, and you do this consistently, and you're constantly evolving. You're not going in a circle. I tried this, it didn't work. 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 No. Let's get you off of that hamster wheel. And don't say try this. Like, do this, I felt better. Do this, I feel better. Do this, I feel better. Do this, I feel better. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? When you met your spouse, where were you? Were you in a trash can? I'm not saying you're trash. I'm not saying you're trash. But what I'm saying is, like, for example, when I met my husband, I met him online through a dating app. That when you're on a dating app, or when you go out to a club, or wherever it is that you go and you're hoping that you'll meet somebody, you're there dressed to impress. You're there looking fly, right? And then you get married and you forget about these things. And then you wonder why he doesn't love you anymore, why she doesn't act the same way. It's because you just stopped, right? So there's a whole lot I can talk about, but and there's so many different levels and so many different circumstances. Each is unique, but the patterns are the same. So what do you do instead? Focus on yourself. Stop worrying about your spouse, all right? But don't distance yourself from your spouse. No freaking trial separation. No contact rule. No, I'm gonna sleep, on the couch. No, none of that stuff. Because you got married to become one. And I'm gonna leave you with this. Because I really didn't want to go on too long. I think I went a little longer than I anticipated. But I want to leave you with this. The negative, when I say negative emotions, I don't mean just anger, but the sadness, right? The sadness you feel about what's going on in your relationship. The things that make you, that distract you from managing your day-to-day, right? It's like you're at work and you can't help thinking about the argument. You're at work and you can't help thinking about what she said or what he said and why did I say that and how can I do this? How can I fix this? How can I make this better? And all these thoughts that are in your head that are distracting you from performing at your best, that are distracting you and preventing you from sleeping soundly at night and at peace. All these thoughts are pulling you away from what you could be doing instead. Focus on yourself. Stop worrying about your spouse. And your spouse is probably thinking about the same in a different way because they're different, right? Everybody is different, right? Why does he, she do, why, what? Don't worry about he, she, why, right? Worry about yourself. But my point is that you are on the same page and you need to solve the problem, right? You're on the same page. You're both married. You're married to each other. Your problems are your spouse's problems. Your spouse's problems are your problems. Come together, right? Picture the triangle. You're at each corner on the bottom of the triangle. Work together by working on yourself, 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 and you meet at the top, right? That's how you solve the problems, right? That's a quick overview, but I hope that helps you to understand what not to do, why it's so weak to choose the easy route that doesn't solve anything. It's just a quick fix. No quick fixes in any part of your life. Unacceptable, unacceptable. All right? So I hope that it added value to your day. I hope that helps to shift some of the thinking. And if it does come up in the future, maybe it's not something you're currently experiencing, but it may be something that comes up in the future. And I hope it helps you to shift your thinking about that, or if you have experienced that and you know what I'm talking about, I hope that you address it differently, think about it differently. And if you need help, if you want me to guide you with your specific situation, book a strategy session and apply for a one-on-one call. All right, so that's miminegron.com/strategy-session. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.